Mr. Speaker, the NDP have been found to be one of the most closed and least transparent governments in Canada, as we've seen recently in published reports and in reports from the Auditor General and the Ombudsman. The NDP have hidden cut after cut after cut, and their fiscal update won't come out until the final week of this sitting. So Manitobans may not even know where the cuts are going to be because we're not even going to get a budget.
Nope.
I asked the Premier, did he decide not to table a budget because he was afraid to tell Manitobans about the cuts he will be making to jobs and services?
Mr. Speaker, we've made it very clear on February 4th that we would provide a fiscal update and outlook for the people of Manitoba. It will be a thorough update. It'll have departmental spending identified within it, Mr. Speaker. It'll give an indication of what our program is to grow the economy and to keep one of the lower unemployment rates in the country and one of the best job creation records. It'll project out over the next few years, Mr. Speaker, to let people know where we're taking the economy and how we're fulfilling some of the very significant commitments we made in our throne speech, Mr. Speaker. We have a very solid plan to keep Manitoba on a steady course of economic growth, low unemployment, and job creation. We have a plan to increase the opportunities for families to have access to quality, non-profit, well-paid daycare with well-trained staff and safe children and in a good learning environment, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to reduce class sizes, Mr. Speaker, so that young people can get off to a good start in school. And we'll have very significant investments in training, apprenticeship, college and university programs, Mr. Speaker, all of which are at risk. If the leader of the Liberal Party is able to impose on the member from River Heights her plan to eliminate the health and education levy, $471 million will disappear in a single year, Mr. Speaker. That's close to $2 billion over
Order,
4
please.
years.
The Honourable First Minister's time on this question has elapsed.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals will create a positive situation for entrepreneurs who will then create jobs and wealth and improve government revenue. I don't see what the problem is, Mr. Speaker. It's likely that the NDP will not release a budget because they don't want to let Manitobans know where they will be cutting.
Failed.
Over the last few years, we've been seeing big cuts in funding and jobs, in conservation, in agriculture, in Aboriginal and Northern affairs, and in research. Where will the Premier cut this year? Or did he choose not to deliver a budget because he wanted to hide details of what he is cutting from the services provided to Manitobans?
I appreciate the question from the member opposite. He will know that we've added over 300 teachers to the public school system.
That's right.
Not the 700 that were laid off when the Leader of the Opposition was last in government. Mr. Speaker, he will see that we've more than fulfilled our election promise on health care with over 220 more doctors working in Manitoba now, Mr. Speaker, and a record number of people graduating from the medical school, Mr. Speaker. All of those things are in our budget. The member opposite, his political party, is promising to eliminate the health and education levy. That's $471 million every single year, Mr. Speaker. How can the member from River Heights possibly get up here and ask a question about cuts when the single biggest tax cut in the history of Manitoba is being proposed by the Liberal Party of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker? $471 million eliminated from health education. That means less nurses by the bedside, less doctors in the community, less teachers in the classroom, Mr. Speaker, less daycare workers in the neighborhoods, Mr. Speaker. That means severe hardship for the families of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, Liberals will create a positive situation for entrepreneurs, will create jobs and wealth and improve government revenue so services can be preserved. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the Premier appears to be far more impressionable than Manitobans would like. He's clearly been influenced by the Stephen Harper playbook. His NDP government has decided on numerous occasions to avoid accountability and transparency, and this is reflected in his decision to avoid tabling a budget. Why has the Premier chosen this page from the Stephen Harper playbook to avoid accountability and transparency to Manitobans at this critical time?
It will provide a clear roadmap to a future of prosperity in Manitoba. His plan to eliminate the health and education levy gives a tax break to the big banks. How did they do last year, Mr. Speaker? $35 billion profits. Why do they need a tax cut from the Liberal Party of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker? Why do the largest corporations in Manitoba need a tax cut, which will take money out of health and education, Mr. Speaker? How does privatizing liquor make life safer and better for Manitobans, Mr. Speaker? Higher prices, lower social responsibility, lower wages for the people there, and less quality of service, Mr. Speaker. The program for the Liberal Party of Manitoba makes no sense fiscally. It makes no sense in terms of policy. The Lumber from River Heights knows that, Mr. Speaker. When will he separate himself from the makes no sense policies of the Liberal Party, Mr. Speaker?